What's up, Guardians? I'm Profane, and thank you as always for checking out the video. Since Edge of Fate released, we've seen a lot of changes in how Guardians power up, how you earn loot, and progress through the game. Today we're going to be looking at how those changes have impacted the onboarding process for new players. So we're going to be breaking down the full new player experience from the perspective of a free-to-play account. A lot of veteran players have found Destiny to be much more difficult to play because of the introduction of the portal. But how does this system impact new players? Well, let's find out.
You don't know how long I've been looking for you.
Before we get started, if you do end up enjoying the video, then please be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. When you start Destiny 2 as a brand new player, you go through the same process as we've gone through for more than a decade. You select what class you want, and you customize your character. But even after all these years, our customizable options are still limited, and I think it would be nice to have some sort of visual demonstration of what each class would look like in combat, not just a description that players get to read. Once you've made your character selections, you'll be given several minutes worth of exposition, giving you a brief synopsis to the lore of Destiny. And there's some really nice cutscenes here, it's just too bad that we don't get those as often. The opening mission plays out about the same as it always has. You go through a brief onboarding mission with Shaw Han, and this gives you a basic rundown of your abilities and your weapon functions, and it gets you familiar with the basic mechanics of how to move around and how to interact with enemies and the environment. You're even going to get exposed to how parkour works in Destiny. In these early stages, you'll notice that Bungie really wants you to invest a lot of time into this game, as you'll have to run around all the corners of every map with your character moving at a snail's pace, and all without a sparrow. Something that Bungie doesn't do a good job at in this crucial point of a player's experience is introducing players to your settings menu, as you'll find several visual, gameplay, and controller options that you might want to consider changing, like field of view, motion blur, controller vibration, controller layouts, controller sensitivity, and even text chat. So be sure to go through these options as soon as you can. By default, Destiny has a tips feature, which can be turned on and off in the settings. So when you're waiting on an activity to load, you'll have a bar of suggestions and tips giving you useful bits of information, like how ghost mods can be equipped to increase your chance of getting specific armor drops. But unfortunately, some of these tips are outdated, and we could use a lot more in general, just like it would be great to have some sort of user feedback tool within the game itself. Another area of opportunity for Bungie, especially in these early stages, would be to incorporate the shooting range into the onboarding process and treat it like a boot camp for Guardians. We could transition an NPC like Ada 1 or Banshee to the shooting range and provide structured guidance on how weapon traits work, how energy types are different, how armor mods actually function, what you can and cannot do with certain abilities, and how subclasses, artifacts, and armor sets can all synergize together. Because the only way a new player can really understand how a build works right now is by watching someone's video guide. And to extend upon that, the Enclave is something that you only get introduced to whenever going through the Witch Queen campaign. Craftable weapons seem to be getting phased out here of late, which could be why Bungie doesn't want to expose new players to this system, but it's still a system that we have in place, so new players should be made aware of its existence and how to use it. Once you've completed the opening mission, you're given two options. You can stay on the Cosmodrome and complete the Guardian Rises quest, which will serve as a short tutorial teaching you how the basic mechanics of Destiny work. This will cover a lot of the basics on abilities, weapon functions, sparrows, and more complex mission objectives. But you can choose to skip it and go straight to the tower, where you'll be introduced to Icor Array and the rest of the tower NPCs. It's with Shaw Han that we get our first glimpse of bounties, exotics, and exotic quests. And we also get to see how some exotic quests are tied behind expansion access. Promoting paid features does seem to be something that Bungie is really good at, because when you have the perspective of a new free-to-play player, it almost feels like everything is locked behind a paywall. You look at the director and it's all a big jumble, with random planets and all these different nodes asking for your $bucks. You click on the Eververse store, hoping to find something that you might be able to pick up for free, and you just get overwhelmed by the amount of items that require silver and large amounts of bright dust, which you haven't been able to acquire yet. And that carries right over into the reward pass, where free players are constantly reminded of how lucrative the paid pass is. But I digress. Along with exotic quests, Shaw Han offers bounties, just like any other planetary vendor does, and these provide experience points when completed. These give you a small amount of glimmer, and in some cases you'll get other resources like Ascendant Shards, Ascendant Alloy, and Enhancement Prisms, which you would use in the process of leveling up weapons and armor, which is something that Bungie misses the bar with when it comes to educating new players on. Farming bounties used to be a great way to level up in Destiny, but the only thing that those experience points go to now is your reward pass and artifact access. So even though it's still important to do in these early stages, they've become much less important to focus on, and there's much better sources of farming XP. Once you get to the tower, you'll speak with Ikora Rey, and this is where you'll be offered a new player kit, which is essentially a starter pack, giving you access to some of the basic functions of one of 3 different light-based subclasses. And this is another good opportunity where Bungie could show players a visual demonstration of what each of these do, but instead we get a little picture and a short description with very little detail and no actual statistics, and that's something that you'll notice a lot in Destiny. You'll see it with aspects, fragments, and abilities, weapon traits, armor, and artifact mods. New light kits are only going to give you a few fragments, aspects, and abilities, so to unlock the rest, you'll need to come back after earning Glimmer. And for whatever reason, we're still bound to a 500,000 Glimmer cap. Increasing the thresholds of resources and vault space have become a bit of an Achilles heel for Bungie, so it'd be nice to see those areas get some improvements at some point in the future. It's important to note that Ikora Rey only offers light subclasses, so to unlock the darkness-based ones, you'll need the Lightfall and Beyond Light expansions, and for Prismatic, you'll need the Final Shape. It's here with Ikora Rey that you first find out what dungeons are, as this is where you can pick up the quest and dungeon key for a few of those, but those are not accessible to free players, and like we've already established, Bungie likes pushing the paid content. After you've spoke with Ikora, you get introduced to the rest of the tower NPCs, which include Banshee, Lord Shaxx, Zavala, and Ada-1. You'll get a look at each of their vendor menus, and each of these vendors will provide you with their own quest, but you'll no longer be sent to the Drifter, as he got the permaban. There's also Saint 14, who handles all of our trials-related matters, and there's Xur, who only gets weekend visitations. After visiting everyone in the tower, the training wheels start to come off, and there's much less structure behind your onboarding process. You could follow the prompts of your guardian ranks and seasonal challenges, but even those can be confusing, and there's no clear direction on what you need to do now. In years past, at this point in the game, players would gradually be transitioned from one planet to another, starting with the EDZ, having players experiencing lost sectors, patrols, public events, and interacting with local NPCs. But since experience points are no longer tied into a player's power level, those restrictions have been removed, and with them went a lot of the structure behind the onboarding process. Now at this point you've been given several quests, and there's probably a number of planets that will be pinging at you whenever you load up the director. Your first instinct might be to tackle some of those planetary objectives, to knock out some of those quests, and start discovering those new planets, but you're going to find that there's little to no reward in doing so, and that's because of the new portal. If you do have expansion access, I would encourage you to complete all of the campaigns that you're able to, because they do have some great story and great character development within them. And the experience of completing some of Destiny's dungeons, exotic missions, and raids can be quite an incredible and memorable experience. Completing those campaigns would help you get started at chipping away on that lengthy power grind, but at the end of the day, you're only going to be able to go beyond the soft cap by participating in portal activities. So don't get overly attached to anything that drops from those other sources, because all the new armor, all the new weapons, and all the powerful loot are locked behind the portal. And at least when it comes to the in-game process, Bungie doesn't do a good job at relaying that, and they don't really provide a good means of transitioning new players into portal activities. You go from something that has a lot of direct guidance and a lot of structure to having vague descriptions or just no explanation at all. And because of that, Guardians are left figuring things out for themselves. And let's be honest, this game looks awfully intimidating when you're not familiar with it and when you're confused on what you really need to be doing. If your only goal is to level up as much as possible, the only place you really need to go is the portal, and Bungie does provide a bit of a breakdown to how this new system works. Power level determines 3 things in Destiny. It dictates how much damage you deal, how much damage you can take, and the quality of the loot that you receive. And when we refer to the quality of loot, we don't just mean the power level, we also mean the tier level, because armor and weapons under the new system range from a tier level of 1 to 5, with 5 being the best available. but you're not going to start getting tier 4 and 5 weapons and armor until you're above 400 power level, which will take about 40 plus hours of gameplay. By the time you've completed the opening mission, you should be around 10 power level, and if you've completed any of the campaigns, you might be over 100, but you would need to reach 200 to be at the soft cap. And when you hit that soft cap, you'll notice that the cost of upgrading armor and weapons now includes unstable cores, and the cost of unstable cores increases the greater the jump in power level, and the only way to get unstable cores is to break down new armor and weapons. So if at all possible, you never want to upgrade anything that was under 200, because the cost would be too severe. The current hard cap for power is 550, which does seem like a lot, and to be fair it is, especially for a casual player that might not only get but a few hours a week. You can reach 500 through portal activities, but once you're at 500, the only way that you'll go any further is by earning a prime engram, which have very low drop chances. When the new Renegades expansion drops, power level will be reset, so I wouldn't sweat it if you're not able to get to 500, especially since you'll have chances at getting tier 5 armor once you've gotten past 400. The intent behind the portal was to make players' experience much more streamlined, letting you think less and play more, but it's created more confusion than anything. The portal acts as a central hub, allowing players to jump straight into certain activities. You've got your easy access option to the newest expansion, and then you have options of solo content, Fireteam, Pinnacle, and Crucible, and most of all the content included in these is completely free to all players. Inside of each of these options, you'll have individual activities to select from, and these activities will change on a daily and weekly basis, and so do their rewards. There's also a quick access panel on the right side of the portal, which has a selection of featured activities to choose from, but these activities are normally not able to be modified. There's also a seasonal hub option, and this lets you access daily and weekly challenges, which are a great source of bright dust, engrams, and several other materials, along with experience. You can also access conquests through this tab, but those are more advanced activities that I would not recommend participating in until you have a solid grasp of how to play this game. And when there's a live event happening, like Iron Banner or Arms Week, you'll have a special node, giving you access to that event's activities, challenges, and rewards. The majority of the activities contained within the Solo, Fireteam, and Pinnacle nodes have the option to be customized, with several negative and positive impacting modifiers available. Some of these modifiers will go through a daily rotation, and others are only available on certain difficulties. Modifiers will make activities harder or easier, and you'll see that portrayed on your forecast breakdown. And as you change modifiers, you'll see your score forecast change, along with the potential loot. A good rule of thumb to go by is if you're just trying to jump in and grab yourself a ton of loot, is to identify the activities that offer the most engrams on their forecast. And as you're building up your customized modifiers, make sure your potential reward forecast is at an A. And because this system has seen a number of changes so far, I would recommend to keep your eye posted on Bungie's website and their Twitter for any real-time adjustments. The big caveat to this, especially once you get into Grandmaster and Ultimate level, is that you have to complete the activity with enough points to reach that optimal forecast. And the further into the power grind that you get, the more difficult it becomes, and each activity starts taking longer and longer to complete. But Bungie has made several promises towards improving the overall quality of this grind, so I guess we'll see if that really does get better. Outside of the everyday portal activities, the best opportunities to rack in on power and high tier loot will be to participate in live and seasonal events like Festival of the Lost, Iron Banner, Arms Week, Heavy Metal, and The Dawning. But most of these events require you to be at Guardian rank 7 and over 300 power level to even have a chance at those higher tier drops. But since most of the objectives within the Guardian ranks are completely oriented around portal activities, you'll be able to complete most of those requirements as you're farming for power. An in-game feature that you always have the option of using, especially in those times where you're unsure of what to do, is the Fireteam Finder, and that should be highlighted more in the onboarding process. But this will be a great way for you to connect to other players within the community, and that's where joining a clan can be a great benefit. It's just unfortunate that the clan feature is severely underdeveloped, underused, and not even included within the new player onboarding, if you would even consider it a new player onboarding at this point, because from what I can tell, it's just a quick pat on the ass, and then you're just tossed out to nature, trying to figure out this confusing system that's led many veteran players to completely stepping away from Destiny. I I know that it's been a while since I experienced what it's like to be a new player, but I was kind of expecting to see something more engaging, for it to provide more guidance and more player education. But like most things in Destiny right now, there's just not a lot of cohesion between all these different systems, which is why I think we really need to see Destiny 3. But what are your thoughts about the new player experience and the veteran player experience? Let us know what you think down in the comments. And if there's any extra tips and suggestions for your fellow Guardians, be sure to let us know what those are down in the comments. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.